My name is Don Lee Daniels. Some of you may remember me as Swami Gyanananda Saraswati. Whether you're watching this on YouTube, listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, I'm glad you're here, truly. For over 40 years, I've been exploring consciousness beyond the body through advanced meditation, conscious out-of-body experiences, and the awakening of Kundalini Shakti, the underlying force that the mystics of every tradition have always known. What you're about to hear is an issue of my newsletter, Listening at the Edge of Consciousness. If you're not yet a subscriber, I invite you to join us. It's free. The link is in the description below and in the show notes. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that you are small. Not in those exact words, perhaps, but the message came through from parents doing their best with what they were given, from teachers working inside systems that rewarded compliance over curiosity, from religious authorities who needed you to remain a supplicant, to listen, from a media culture that profits from your sense of lack. It came in 1,000 forms, repeated across a lifetime, until it stopped feeling like a message and started feeling like the truth. You learned to see yourself as a small, uncertain figure in an incomprehensibly vast universe, looking upward, looking outward, hoping that something greater might notice you and help. But here's what I have discovered through decades of direct experience. Through meditation, through conscious out-of-body travel, through the deepest states of awareness I have been able to reach, you are not looking at the universe. You are the universe looking. You are not a speck hoping for connection to something greater. You are pure consciousness, the same awareness that moves through galaxies and grows through the earth and breathes through every living form, expressing itself right now through this human body, through these eyes, through this life, through your life. You are never separate from it. You are only taught to forget. And here is what breaks my heart. The key has been in your hand the entire time. You have been standing in a locked room, searching the walls, pleading for someone to let you out. And the key was in your hand the whole time. It was always in your hand. The door to your ultimate nature, your real existence, the full magnitude of what you actually are, it was never locked away from you. The Apostle Paul, writing in the New Testament, wrote, "For now we see through a glass darkly." I want to take that a little bit further. Shine that glass until it becomes clear, then keep going until the glass itself dissolves, until you realize that what you were looking through was never really there. There was only seeing. There was only you, pure, unbounded, radiant awareness that had temporarily forgotten what it was, who you were. This is not philosophy. This is not a belief system I'm asking you to adopt. I know this because I've lived it through 40 years of meditation, through hundreds of conscious out-of-body journeys, through the deepest states of awareness I've been able to reach and return from. And what I can tell you with everything I am is this: direct experience reshapes your reality. Not inspiration, not belief, not just reading about it. The moment you touch what you actually are, beyond the body, beyond the story, beyond the conditioning, something shifts that cannot be unshifted. You don't go back to seeing yourself as small. You can't. The glass has been polished, and once you see clearly, the seeing changes you. This is what the astral monk is built on. Not doctrine, direct experience. And it is available to you, not just tonight, not just at the edge of sleep, but in more moments than you realize. In the space between breaths, in the stillness at the end of a deep meditation, in the awe of watching a sunset and feeling just for a moment that the boundary between you and light has dissolved, in the hypnagogic drift of an afternoon nap, in the suspended pause of a daydream where the ordinary world goes quiet and something else seems to breathe through you. These are all thresholds. They are all doorways. The ancient masters of Shaivism mapped at least 112 distinct ways of entering these states, and I'll be teaching many of them to you in the months ahead through the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, one of the most extraordinary consciousness manuals ever written. Every one of these methods points to the same recognition. The door is already open. You only need to learn to feel it and to go through it. The easiest entry point, the one available to every human being every single night, is the threshold you cross as you move from waking into sleep. And this is where we're going to begin. The conditioning says spiritual experience is rare, reserved for the chosen, the gifted, the extraordinarily devoted, reserved for monks in mountain caves, not for ordinary people crossing from Tuesday into Wednesday. The ancient masters said otherwise, and they left us a map. In the non-dual Shaiva Tantra tradition that I've studied, they had a precise word for this threshold state, the tandra state. Not sleep, not waking, the luminous aperture between them. The tantric tradition calls it one of the great sandhis, sacred junctions where reality reveals itself most clearly. Dawn and dusk are sandhi, the charged moments when day and night interpenetrate. The pause between the out-breath and the in-breath is a sandhi, that tiny pregnant stillness where one movement ends and another has not yet begun. Even the transition from one thought to the next contains a sandhi, a gap where pure awareness briefly shines through. And the edge between waking and sleep, that trembling, dissolving borderland, is the most accessible sandhi of all, visited by every human being every single night without exception. These threshold moments are not accidents. They are invitations. In NST, non-dual Shaivism Tantra, they are the natural gaps in the fabric of ordinary consciousness, where the deeper reality beneath it, spanda, the living pulse of consciousness, becomes palpable and knowable to those who have learned to recognize it. The Tibetan masters had their own name for what appears at this threshold, the clear light. They taught that this same luminosity arises naturally when the coarse and subtle levels of the mind dissolve, at the edge of sleep, in the deepest states of meditation, and at the moment of death. To recognize it, they said, is liberation. But here is what makes this teaching so radical and so practical. This luminosity is not reserved for the dying. It can be trained. A practitioner who learns to recognize the clear light during life, in meditation, at the threshold of sleep, in the gaps between thoughts, builds a familiarity with their own deepest nature that transforms everything. The Tibetan masters were not simply preparing their students for death. No, they were teaching them to live from a different ground of being right now. different traditions, different centuries, different vocabularies. One threshold, one invitation. Now let me tell you what it actually feels like. I want to be clear about when this happened for me. I was in the early years of my practice, experimenting, exploring, pushing edges I didn't fully yet understand. I had experienced the tandra state many times, but I was still learning the terrain. I share this not to suggest that what arose was a sign of inexperience, but to be honest with you, even a practitioner who has tasted direct experience can encounter the gatekeeper, especially when something larger is about to open. After meditation one evening, I lay in stillness, breath gentle, body beginning to release. The boundary of waking began to dissolve. A tingling arose, faint at first, then spreading through the body like a subtle current, gathering into waves, rising along my spine until every cell seemed to hum with something I can only call energy. My body grew heavy, fixed, as though gravity had doubled, breath suspended in the stillness, and then, I have to admit, fear came up. What if I can't return? What if this is death? And the urge to resist at that moment was really strong, but beneath the fear, there was something else, a quiet invitation, a pull towards something larger than the alarm. I surrendered. The vibrations intensified. The sense of having a body dissolved, and then silence. A brightness appeared, not from any direction, but from everywhere at once, limitless, alive, awareness without form. More awake than waking itself. And in that moment, something else arose, something I had not anticipated. Not just the absence of fear, but its complete replacement by an overwhelming, absolute sense of freedom, a freedom with no bottom to it. Because here is what the crossing reveals with total certainty. Life continues outside the physical body, not as a belief, not as a hope, as a direct, undeniable fact of experience. You are there. You are aware. You are fully, vividly, completely you, and the body, your body, is lying peacefully somewhere behind you, probably in the bed beneath you. There is nothing left to fear. Not death, not the unknown, not the vastness, because what you discover on the other side of that surrender is not darkness or annihilation. It is, in Sanskrit, Sat Chit Ananda, pure existence, pure consciousness, pure bliss. The very nature of what you are finally experienced without obstruction. This was the threshold, the doorway most of us mistake for nothing. What I came to understand afterward is this: fear is always that final gatekeeper, the paralysis, the vibrations you might feel, the sense of something vast and unknown. These are not signs of danger, they are signs of nearness. The wall and the door look identical from the outside. To step through is to discover that what awakens on the other side is not a dream, it's not a hallucination, it's not the body. It is awareness itself, spacious, self-luminous, and free. What I discovered beyond that threshold did not fit inside any category I had been given. It was not simply sleep. It was not imagination. It was something that felt, and I choose this word carefully, more. It was something that felt more real than ordinary waking life. I found myself standing on a hillside beneath a vast night sky, stars brilliant and alive. But the true wonder was not the landscape, it was the continuity. There had been no blackout, no gap in awareness, no forgetting. I had carried my consciousness across that seam intact. The dream was luminous because I was luminous. Awareness had remained unbroken. And in that moment, I understood something that the Tibetan masters had been pointing towards all along. Awareness itself cannot be extinguished. It moves across dimensions freely, without loss. And this is what I mean by the multidimensional worlds. It's not a fantasy, it's not a metaphor. It's a direct, repeatable experience available to any human being willing to cross the threshold consciously. Whether you arrive there through deep meditation, through conscious entry into sleep, or through the kind of out-of-body experience I've described here, you are arriving at the same recognition. There is a perceiver in you that was never limited to the body. It has always been there, and it is there right now. Now, here is the part most traditions leave out. Crossing the threshold is not the most important moment, although it can be spectacular and astonishing. Returning is. Now, I want to share something I witnessed while I lived in the ashram, a moment that has stayed with me for decades. After a long, deep group meditation, the bell rang, and almost immediately, students began to stir, stretch, reach for water, start talking, pull out their notebooks, or think about lunch. The energy in the room, that fragile, luminous quality that had been built over an hour of stillness, scattered in seconds. My teacher watched this happen, and then he said quietly, but with unmistakable weight, "Sit. Do not move yet. Integrate what you have just experienced. If you jump up now, you will lose it. The teaching does not end when the bell rings. This, right now in this stillness, is where the real work happens." He was pointing at something most people never realize. The moments immediately after a peak state are not a return to ordinary life. They are the most critical moments of the entire practice. This is where direct experience has the opportunity to reshape your reality, not just visit it. And the same is true every morning. Every night, consciousness crosses a threshold, and every morning it comes back. And almost instantly, without realizing it, you begin to reconstruct yourself. Your memory returns, your past returns, all your concerns and worries return, your identity returns, at least who you think you are. Not because these things are fundamentally real, but because they are familiar, because they have been rehearsed thousands of mornings in a row without ever being questioned at the moment they form. And this is the loop. This is the mechanism that keeps us small. So here's the first and most important practice I can give you. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, do not move. The moment you feel yourself returning to waking consciousness, stay still. Do not reach for your phone. Do not begin rehearsing the day. Don't let the story of who you are rush back in unchecked. Instead, linger for just a short while. Try to remember where you just were, what you just experienced, what you felt, the images, the sensations, the quality of awareness in the inner worlds you were just inhabiting, because those worlds are real. They are not lesser than this physical world. They are simply a different dimension of the same consciousness that you are. Hold them, honor them, Let their reality settle into you before the ordinary world reasserts itself. The more you practice this, the more you will begin to feel it, that the inner worlds have weight, that what happens there matters, that the awareness you carry through sleep is the same awareness reading or listening to these words right now. And then, gently, before the day assembles itself, ask yourself one question. Who was I before I remembered who I am? Because here is what I want you to understand, and I want you to feel it rather than simply agree with it intellectually. You are not your story. I'll repeat that. You are not your story. The story changes. It has always changed. The person you were 5 years ago is genuinely not the person you are today. Different concerns, different wounds, different understanding, different body even at the cellular level. And 5 years from now, that will be true again. This is not a problem. This is the nature of life moving through form. The problem is when we cling to the old story as though it were us. When we drag yesterday's pain into today's morning and call it identity. When we let the accumulated weight of everything we have suffered and have been told we are become the lens through which we greet each new day. Many people are being torn apart by this, not by their circumstances, but by their unquestioned loyalty to a story that stopped being true long ago. We can explore that more deeply in a future issue, but understand this now. Every morning you return from the threshold. You have a window, brief, quiet, almost imperceptible, before your story reassembles itself. In that window, you are present, but not yet defined. Aware, but not yet the wound. You can choose to return as the perceiver rather than as the accumulated past. Instead of picking up limitation, you can pick up light. Instead of re-entering the contraction, you can carry forward what you discovered beyond the threshold, that you are vast, that you are free, that pure consciousness is not something you are trying to reach, but something you already are. This is how we become free. Not by escaping the physical world, but by moving through it with a different understanding of what and who we are. This is what my teacher was pointing at when the bell rang and we all jumped up and scattered. Sit, integrate, do not lose it. Direct experience reshapes your reality, but only if you let it land within you. You have to feel it and know it. You must move forward into the light, not backward into that old story. This is not philosophy. This is training. Tonight, as you lie down to sleep, do not rush into unconsciousness. Instead, let the body soften. Let the breath slow, and bring a gentle, relaxed attention to the space where waking begins to dissolve. You'll feel it. The world grows distant. Thought loosens. The body grows heavy. That is the threshold opening. Do not force anything. Do not grasp. Simply remain aware, the way you might watch the surface of still water without disturbing it. If you feel vibrations, tingling, a sense of expansion, do not resist. These are not signs of danger. They are confirmations that you are close. And in the morning, before you reach for your phone, Before the day rushes in, pause. Rest in whatever you are in those first seconds before thought reassembles. Ask yourself, who was I just before I became myself again? Let that question live in you night after night, morning after morning. It will open something. When the external sensory field has disappeared, but sleep has not yet come, that liminal state is reachable in which pure consciousness, the Supreme Goddess, manifests. This is from the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, a 1,000-year-old text from India. And as a Swami told me in the ashram years ago, the closer you come to sleep without falling in, the more clearly she speaks. Different centuries, different continents, different vocabularies, one threshold, one invitation. You have been crossing this threshold your entire life, every night without exception. The door has always been open. What has been missing is not the experience, it is the awareness to recognize it, the training to remain present within it, and the understanding that what you discover on the other side is not separate from who you are here. It is who you are. The Apostle Paul wrote in the New Testament that we see through a glass darkly. I have spent decades polishing that glass, and what I want to tell you, what this entire project is built on, is that the polishing does not end with clarity. It ends with dissolution. At some point, the glass itself disappears, and you realize with a shock of recognition that what you were looking through was never really there. There was only the seeing. There was only awareness, whole, unbounded, luminous, that has been convinced by 10,000 repetitions that it was small. You are not small. You are the universe that became curious about itself and decided to look through human eyes. The conditioning will tell you otherwise. It will be loud and familiar, and it will sound like your own voice. Society, education, religion, media, the authorities, they built that voice carefully over many years, and it will not give up easily. But every morning, in the gap before the story begins again, there is a moment when you know the truth. Use that moment. Cross that threshold tonight with even a fraction more awareness than you did last night. Stay with what you find there, and when you return, do not rush back into the old story. Sit, integrate. Let the experience land. Let it fill you up. Let it reshape you, because it will. Direct experience reshapes your reality. That is not a slogan. That is the most precise description I know of what actually happens when a human being begins to cross the threshold consciously, night after night, and return with recognition intact. You are not your conditioning. You are not your history. You are not the small self that was handed to you. You are a multidimensional being of light, energy, and love. You are pure consciousness, and you always have been. That's the end of this issue of Listening at the Edge of Consciousness. The most important thing you can do right now is subscribe to the free weekly newsletter, Direct Experience, Ancient Wisdom, Modern Technology, and Practical Guidance for exploring consciousness beyond the body and deep within. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, please follow the show. And if this teaching moved you, A review helps more people find their way here. We're just beginning. Dive inward and fly free.